Hi, welcome. This is Pain to Power, and I am your host, Marya Kazmi, also known as Brown Girl Interrupting. And this is a show where we talk about healing and growing and turning our struggles into strengths. And this year, I know right now, probably a lot of us are on the heels of doing a lot of resolutions for the year to come, but also in reflections. And so I actually took a recent trip and did some reflections in my trip. And many of those was just thinking about what a tough year this has been for me. And if you know me personally, you probably know that. But if you follow me on social media, you probably know that too, because it's been a lot of rapid change in life, and it's just continuing to move forward. But one of the things that's helped me tremendously is honestly this show. And it's because of the conversations and the tools that I gain through talking to others about how they have overcome their pain, how they have learned ways to shift their mindsets and struggle. And also in allowing myself to share my journey with other people. It's been healing me. So today I'm super excited because the person I'm about to introduce to you has also been integral in some of that, in sharing and hearing my story, and also in creating this space and place for me to be able to see and understand some of this idea of how do we turn our struggles into strength. I'm very excited to introduce to you my guest today, who is a true energy, a giving soul, and always creating spaces for others to feel comfortable and shine. He's an educational enthusiast, a human central leader, and an avatar of educational advisement. Also, he is the very proud director of facilitator engagement at Unbound Ed. Woohoo to our Unbound Ed family, the purple power right there. Jason Epting.
Hey, thank you for having me. I love the introduction. Those are all true. All that stuff is really true.
It absolutely is. And you are so true to who you are. This is welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. This is like 3 years in the making.
Yes.
The first time I asked you to be on the show, and you've been pushing it off. You're like, I'm not ready, not ready, not ready.
Yeah.
But you're ready today, which I'm super excited about. And this is going to be a great show.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. You know, it was about 5 years ago that we met.
That's true. It was a beautiful time too. I just remember, when someone does their facilitation for the first time with Unbound Ed, it's a big deal. I mean, it's like being part of something big. And I remember my first time, and I just wanted to make sure that you had a great first time too. And Charles was there as well. I hope he's tuning in. And it was just a beautiful connection. And now you couldn't get rid of me if you wanted to. So that's just how it has to be.
Well, and honestly, I think it speaks to why you're here today and who you are as a person, because what it is, it's a beautiful space, but it's also a really scary space. It's a really scary space to go to a national level of facilitating conference conversations and intense conversations and difficult conversations. It's a lot of learning. And you made it feel so comfortable and safe for me. And I'm really appreciative of that. And to watch you now be the person that you are in the role as a director, facilitator engagement, is you bring all of that energy now to every single person who walks in and it starts this journey through Unbound Ed. So that's amazing. I love that we have our purple here to represent our Unbound Ed. Like we're going hard. But honestly, I've asked you here because yes, you do all those things, but all of that has been your journey of like where you've come to through so much that you have experienced and held and dealt with in life, right? So first off, I always ask my guests, because I think this is such an important question that everyone has a different way of perceiving and looking at. But when you think about the idea of turning pain into power, what does that mean for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm glad you have me on this show. This has been something I've been watching for a while, but it's like, I don't know if I can be on there yet. Maybe my story wasn't curated enough, but I feel like it's just time for just to share my gifts. And if even one person can be impacted by something I say tonight that lingers with them, I think that I've done what I'm put on this earth to do. But yeah, when I think of pain to power, it's like the first thing that actually comes to mind is that pain is going to come up in your life. And it's like preparing the person you want to be when the pain actually happens and how you're going to conduct yourself and what things you're going to lean into, because you also have divinity at the same exact time. So it's like we start with this greatness, and then pain comes, and we get to continue living out our greatness and our divinity in those things. If I like keep thinking that way, then I'm going to act that way too. And even when I'm going through some of the toughest times, and um, sometimes they felt like deaths, even, like deaths to a lot of things, we are reincarnated into the people to evolve who we're supposed to be. And I believe strongly that there's a creator who is very important in creating this who we are, and we can be very important to everybody else in this universe. So yeah, that's what I think about.
As powerful though, the divinity within ourselves, because yeah, like, and this comes up often, right? Pain is always going to be there. Like that is, if there is one thing you can count on, it's that challenges and pain is going to come, right?
Yeah,
But what can you do to prepare for them so that
yeah,
in those moments you're going to be ready is so important. And you didn't just say just be ready. Like you know your own greatness, you know your own power.
yeah. And that's not the easiest thing. Like I can just say that, and I just like a lot of us have some ideas. Like our first thought about ourselves is like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not sure if I can do that yet, or I couldn't handle that if that happened. And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like I'm not looking forward to any more pain coming this way anytime soon. However, though, when we have stock of those different things that have happened, to see how you move and see the blessings you have from people that support you, or the things you've read, or something you remember as a child, even will help you to be able to navigate that and be like, you know what, this doesn't feel great, but I'm going to come out of this because I am great. I am designed to come out of this and live in the power that I actually have for myself. It doesn't always feel right, but it is actually the right thing.
It doesn't feel right. And I don't think it's always easy. It's definitely not easy, right? Because you have to get through some barriers of mindsets to get
Mm,
to that place, right? And you have to, and let's be clear, like, and you constantly have to get through those barriers because they keep coming up. Imposter syndrome might come up in one place and then you'll see it again in another, right? Like it's a never ending journey. But you mentioned childhood and
mhm.
children. So let's go back there a little bit just to give us like the story of Jason. You born in Chicago, but
Yeah,
you lived a lot of your life in Nebraska. Tell me a
yeah,
little bit about you as a kid growing up and just the environment in which you were raised in.
yeah. I just still feel I'm like reflecting on my life. I just think that it's such an important journey for me. And I was just like, man, just growing up in Chicago itself, it was during one of our biggest winning eras of like the Chicago Bears winning. And so that's still stuck on that right now, to be honest with you. But just thinking about like my day to day life, my dad and mom, who have 9 children. And at the time, we were a big family in Chicago. I just had the opportunity to feel love. I had the opportunity to see my dad grow up and like really work really hard, but my mom just become the matriarch. I look back and I'm just like, I didn't even to think about it too. It's like I never really even saw a white person until I was like 4 or 5, because I was just in my community. So I never thought
Mhm.
about it then, but now that I look back and like my move to Nebraska, I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, but in Chicago, and we were in the South Side, in Harvey and Markham and those areas. It was just we were close to family, and we just had a really strong, loving community. And my parents were all about making sure that we did the best we can and protecting us the best they possibly could. And they valued education, but they also valued our connectivity to one another, and also our connectivity with them. So I feel blessed to have them as parents. I can say that over and over and over again. Learn so much from each one of them separately, but also together, and how they navigated the ups and downs. But that was beautiful. But part of the story takes us to Nebraska. So my dad, being the person he is, he wanted better for us, and my mom wanted the better for us too. And they didn't feel like Chicago was the place at the time for us to grow the way that they felt we could. Me, I don't know no different. I have all my friends. I have all my people I hang out with in the neighborhood.
Right. Kids move with the adults' decisions,
You know what
right?
I'm saying? So it's like I mean, like my dad was a engineer on the Union Pacific Railroad, and at that time it was a big deal because for a black man to have that job, to be a conductor but work his way up to the engineer, was like really a big deal. There weren't many. I think that there's maybe even like at that time maybe only 3. And I still know who they are to this day. We have family members, like their family to me too. Um, Actually, there's 4. Actually, that's interesting. 4. And part of it, the deal was for him to move to North Platte, Nebraska. Now, anybody on the live right now that knows anything about Nebraska, like if you're traveling from I-80 all the way through Chicago, you have to go through Omaha first, and you're in Nebraska. North Platte, Nebraska, still 3.5 hours away. So we're going, yay, we finally made it to Nebraska when we got to Omaha, and like still had 3.5 hours. So I will never forget that story. Like we were deep in the middle of a town with only 25,000 people. And I got to learn who I was and my actual true value and worth in North Platte, Nebraska because of the culture shock. It was a predominantly white environment. I mean, I guess the population, all the black people in the town were primarily just me and my brothers and sisters, it felt like. And we, navigated a lot of great situations and great relationships, but we also had to navigate some bias. We had to navigate some racism. We had to like some people just didn't know, like naivety from a lot of people, and it felt like it was like a dance all the time. Like, who am I though? Like, am I gonna code switch? Who am I? Am I worthy? And I had to really come to grips with who I am to be the person I am today, where I feel like I can walk in any environment and be my true authentic self, my liberated self, without putting on. I'm just like me, Jason. So, and I'm proud to be a black man, but I'm also proud to be a world citizen. So it's cool.
I love that. And geologic inferences, that must have been very interesting, I imagine, right?
Well,
Like, so tell me,
got
like,
mad stories about
well, you know what? That was going to be my next question, Jason. Come on now. Like, what are some of those moments that stand out to you about your own understanding of, you said, culture shock and understanding your own identity, like that you can recall or at being there?
Right. So my origin story, I would say, is like it's part of my arc. Is like when I got there, it feels like it was difficult for me to make friends, and I don't know if that was actually true or not, but it was something that was internal with me. So what I did was like I just like what, I wasn't even into basketball. I was into football more because of the Chicago Bears and all that stuff. But when I got there, I just felt like I was just not in the right place. So what I did was I just started shooting baskets, and I was at the rec center, I would say, for 6 hours a day. It was crazy. It was just like one of those things where it's like the first thing I do is go shoot, then I go to school, and then I go back and shoot. And it just felt like I was in my own sanctuary, and I got to learn myself. And if anybody else is like me out there, you talk to yourself and those things. I got to learn this skill really, really well, but talking to myself and like providing my own kind of therapy for like, how am I navigating my life in, middle school with other people who don't look like me, don't understand me. And I'd have enough strength and power to go in and just like, just like my mom taught me when we answered the phone, like, hey, make sure you speak with a proper voice and all those other things. And it's just like me navigating, like, okay, also it's like, you're the new black guy, you're cool, come rap for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, please. Or people touching my hair, I'm like, oh, okay. But a lot of my classmates just didn't understand a lot of those things. But at the same time, it opens up doors for me to have great relationships with people who really did care about me as a person. I got to play basketball a lot, and I built strong relationships where people are still my like family, chosen family today because of it. I can name some of them: Jeremy Pratt, Russ Pratt. They were my coaches. That's my boy. I've had an opportunity to meet so many different people who are still part of my life today. I can name a ton of them, but there's also the other yang of that is that they felt like when first time somebody called me a nigger, I was like, where I come from, you're not talking about my mom. You're not talking about my brothers or sisters. I'm very protective. I'm very intense in that different way. So the way I navigated life at that time was like, I would just fight everybody. And I wanted people to think I was tough and all that other stuff. But I was just like, in real life, I was scared all the time. And then when I felt like I was being disrespected, I just would just fight, and then I would win. But the tough thing that you learn and you evolve and you have to put a depth to is that as soon as you make one fight and you're fighting over stuff that, protecting your ego, protecting your pride, that other people are lining up waiting just to challenge. And I was like, dang, this sucks. It was exhausting. So I had to like pivot and just make sure that like I'm building strong relationships with everybody, but also protecting people who are being marginalized. And that was a time where I knew that like if people are treating me this way, there's other people who are being bullied, and I would stand up to bullies wherever I am. I've always done that since I was a kid, and I do it today. So yeah, so that's one story. Those things are real.
Wow. No, and geologic friends. Wow. Yeah, I agree. And I think, but you outline so many key pieces, right? I think like one, that your awareness of knowing how to find your outlet and creating that space for yourself to kind of like reclaim that power, like what you talk about, finding that divinity within you to then deal with what it is to be in this culture shock space, to be a Black man in Nebraska at this time, you know, a Black boy, right? Like a young kid. And, um, but I think also, like, obviously, you've had some really serious, painful moments that you could have internalized differently, but you always make these shifts in yourself. It sounds like you are so aware of yourself. Has that awareness always been just present in like guiding you in your life, you feel?
I don't know. I'm gonna blame this on a praying mom and a praying grandma and a praying dad. I mean, to be honest with you, it's like a lot of the gifts that I think I have now. They've always, and I see it in my students too, by the way. And I see it in people, and that's one thing I think it is a gift. I can see it even when other people can't see it or they can't see it themselves. But I didn't know it at the time. But it was like this call. I already had it like somewhat. I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to be a kid, trying to live, you know. But for some reason,
Mm,
it felt like that was a divine moment itself because I ended up being like, I'm writing a book right now about how basketball has helped impact almost my character, my relationships, and how that mindset of like what it takes to be really, really good at it, that you can incorporate that to anything in life. An example is like when you're running lines, you never miss the line because you cheat yourself an inch. Then those inches stack up to be something else. And I remember that as a sixth grader running suicide lines, but I still use it in my professional developments today to be like, look, don't cheat yourself. You hit that line every single time. You're worthy for it, and your team is depending on you. And that little inch is going to stack up if you're like shorting yourself, but also those inches stack up to greatness later. So that book has a lot of that stuff. Ranchers Union, like we're
mhm.
gonna have a bunch of those
It's
good.
gonna be deep. It's gonna be deep. Look, Jason,
Yeah.
y'all will see tonight. Jason always has the lines to take you deep and connect it all together. And salute to our iRant family. Tennessee Throat Therapy Radio 808 is here. What up, Brown Up panel? And thank you so much for being here, Tennessee. Um, and so I love that, and I love that you're able, again, like, not just to take it, but like, okay, now how do I learn a lesson from this? Like, that I think is so much the journey of turning your struggle into strength, right? It is the mindset shifts and all these big mindset shifts, but I don't think they've all, like you've already explained, they haven't come as easy, right? They come from pain, they come from these moments. Basketball in particular, you were talking about many deaths and rebirths, right, in your
Mhm.
life. Basketball was one of those moments for you. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about your basketball story and journey and where it took you.
Thank you for asking about that. It feels like forever ago, but it actually doesn't. It feels like it was like yesterday. So when I talk about it, it feels like I was just practicing with my friends, just shooting around with Matt Rama at 6 o'clock in the morning, just because that's what we do. And I was like, dang, this stuff is shaping me to who I am. So I give a lot of credit to the people that I've been blessed enough to be around who taught me things I probably wouldn't have known on my own. It just took it later, take it further, that they were incorporated into my life so that I can be like, okay, now I'm the kind of person that does work out in the morning. I am the kind of person that doesn't cheat lines. I'm a person that always looks out for my teammates, all that stuff, right? So that's the good stuff. But part of it was, I'll say, like, while some people look at me now, they're like, "Oh, you can't play basketball. It's got to be football or something." No, I used to play basketball. I played basketball, and to be honest with you, it's like I was good. I was really good. Yeah, I was really good. I'll say I was really good. But I
You got
wasn't like,
divinity, own it. Like,
yeah.
I was like,
I guess
it's
the
your
part that
greatness.
like, yeah, like some athletes they'll be like earlier in life, you have to kind of talk to yourself into being the best, right? Like I'm the best. I'm doing my best on all these things. So I like even walked around like that kind of. But in real life and retrospect, it's like I knew that I wasn't the best, and I knew I had to work really, really hard to be even close to some of the other people I was even close to be to compete against. Like there's a guy even in my class who was just so good. Like he was good since I was there, and I was just like, geez, he's so good. So I like literally just followed him around, and I was like, and I had this heart where it's like, well, if he's that good, then I'm going to learn from him. And that was early. So I was like, I still take that into life today. So if somebody's better than me, I'm going to find out what you're doing, and I'm going to try to try to work at least as hard as you or outwork you. And then I just happened to be around people who were at the top level of everything they did. So I became really good, but it was probably because I had high level people around me, and I like was in spaces like our my sophomore year of high school. We had a 7-footer. We had a team with that was just incredible, and then we just played against the like future NBA players, and I just had the opportunity just to play with them at a very young age. So I was like very confident, and I like knew what it took to play well. However, I was 6'2". I didn't have the development of a guard. I wasn't shooting like everybody else, and I wasn't dribbling like everybody else. I was strong. I could play defense. I was fast. I could jump out the gym, but I knew I had all this stuff to work on. So I spent a lot of time just developing myself to be the best I possibly can be. But in the end, I still wasn't good enough to go to the NBA. I still wasn't good enough to make the D1 Nebraska team and actually play. So I started to be like, you know what? I'm just going to be the manager of the team, whatever I can do to learn more in those things. And then part of it too was like I felt like I wasn't accepted too. It felt like I was working hard, but my coaches just didn't see me the way that I saw myself, and that's a real thing for all of us in our life, right? So I started to just play for the love of the game, and I went really far because I loved it so much, and I loved my teammates and became leader among them, even though I was the best player. So that's my claim to fame. But the tough part is the death had to go. It's like, okay, well, now that basketball is over, you don't have a scholarship. What are you going to do? Who are you? And that was like a year of trying to figure out who I was. And I was like kind of spinning out, like wilding out, like partying a lot, doing different things. Just like trying to figure out, like, am I the cool guy on campus or what? I just like, just trying to figure it out. And I learned a lot from that death, that like basketball was a great foundation for everything. And it's still to this day, and I still coach. I still, ref here and there. I still use the lines of what I learned earlier on to help motivate and encourage people and develop people. But yeah, it ended up that time was just really tough, and I just had to really figure out who I was and what things I was going to be going forward. Luckily, like I said, I had a praying grandma, I had grandmas, I had a praying mom, and my dad was all about me. So at an early age, I forgot about this. Really, I had said that I was going to be a teacher early on, like when I was like 15. So a teacher brought it to my attention when I was reading to kids. Then it was like, "You're going to be a teacher, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." But I was like, at the time though, I'm thinking, "Shoot, I'm about to go play in the NBA," But I didn't. But I definitely became a teacher, and it became a bigger love than basketball ever could have been. So, yeah, it's cool.
I love that. And her creative mind says hello, Marya Jason in chat. Welcome, her creative mind. I love having you here. And so, what was it that like? I mean, you said that you were 15 and you remember that you yourself wanted to be an educator. Like that was a thing for you. But that is a shift, right? Even though it's not, and I love that you connect that those two are not necessarily a shift in so many ways, because you're taking so much of your basketball experience and playing and learning from others and pushing yourself through difficulty to put it into other places in life. But just that sounded like it really became your passion, right? So what was it like to embrace that as your passion in education?
Well, actually, it felt like butterfly. I still have them today. Like once I'm done with all this stuff, I think I'm really going to go back to teach. I really do, because I'm being called to do something else right now, and that's great because I feel like I'm great at these things too. But one of my true passions was teaching, like, and embracing it, just like I used to love just sitting there, like doing my Super Six drills, just like form shooting, or doing like my post moves or whatever it was, just to perfect them so I can use them in the game. I just incorporated all those ideals into how to be a great teacher. One of the things that I think I've mastered as an avatar educator is that like my airbending from Aang, like I'll talk about that later, but the thing I mastered really early because of my experience was how to build strong cultures in wherever I am, meaning in my family, on my teams, in a school, with my teachers, with my co-teachers and colleagues. It's just like, I think that I figure out a way to tap into who people are and like build on their strengths so I can be strong in those areas too. And we feel like we're part of something big. Like being on a championship team is always great thing. I feel like I've been on many championship teams after basketball, which is one of the best things because I still have a feeling from that, you know? So I do take
Mm-hmm.
that in consideration. That feeling means something to me. I can tie myself back to that feeling that I had. So when I got to, and I'll be quite frank, like my first year teaching was a disaster. Oh my gosh, I just thought I knew, and I had all these ideals like, oh, the kids are going to decorate the room. I'm going to be the different teacher. And I got in there, I'm like, bare walls. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was ready to take them to recess all at any moment. You know,
Well,
so
you're trying to just stay afloat, right? Like, can I make it through the day? Because this is hard and a lot of stuff all at once, right?
it was, and it was like the gifts that I had, that wasn't enough, right? So then I was like, oh, bet I understand it now. Started to like really study lesson plans, really started to understand how the room is used as a tool itself for kids to learn from teachers who are mentor teachers and like literally take their ideas and literally put them into place. I started that very early on because I had no choice. I thought I had it, I just didn't have it. And no knock to my my schooling and those things, but my student teaching experience that happened in the classroom was more like, oh, he's such a great guy to have around, but I didn't get to do nothing, right? I was just watching and like being good with kids. I didn't really get an opportunity to like
Mm.
write my lesson plans or like understand a curriculum or know what the standards are or our expectations. Not much, right? Just little times. But guess who did do it? I'm a double major, by the way. So I had elementary education K through 6 was my major, and then I was a double major. I was PE K through 12 because I tried to
Oh,
tie
wow.
tie
Okay.
the two together. I tried to tie, basketball and all that stuff together. So I was like, maybe if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do PE. So I did an extra semester to graduate um, PE K through 12. And guess what? The dude that, bless his heart, the PE teacher's lessons, he made me do lessons. He had me do routines. He had me like show me ways to encourage people like, okay, we're going to do 1 minute today and this is the club, and if you make it to 1 minute, great. Next time everybody will get a chance. I remember like his stuff like it was like yesterday. And guess what? I incorporated that in the very next time I had the opportunity to teach. I was like, now I understand. I'm going to do the PE approach to class. And then I just kept getting better and better. So then I was just like on fire, like I saw it, I failed, and then I came back. My comeback was stronger, and then I just kept getting better and better and better. And then I had leaders who would look at my passion, they would look at my dedication, they would look at my connectivity to people, and be like, "Oh, I want to tap into that too." So almost all of my leaders were on like wanted to develop me too, which was a gift as well. So
That's awesome, and I love that. But so I gotta ask because in your double major, right? I think, and you're a part of another group of someone that I've interviewed before, Bond, which is
yeah,
building our
yeah,
network of diversity, and a lot of what Bond talks about is the importance of Black male or male educators of color, but
yeah,
also particularly how schooling needs to be so different for our boys in
for sure.
school. So I'm curious to know if that was part of even some of that ability to meld those two pieces to create learning that is more conducive to boys as well as girls.
Yeah, no, it's really true. It's like I know myself, and I know, I'm one of 9 kids, and all 6 boys came first. I've been on many teams and those things. My power and passion was really around developing young men or young boys to be men. Like that is a thing I do to this day. It is like
Mm-hmm.
part of the undercurrent of everything I do. But also that doesn't mean that it's excluding anybody else. We're best blessed to be in each other's lives. Like we are all going to help each other be better, right? But I did have a leaning forward that happened because I knew how I was treated in school, and it felt like sometimes ignored. It felt like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I felt people just didn't know how brilliant I really was. I actually, out of our family, like my mom knew, it's like I would get in trouble if I didn't bring home A's. Not in a bad way, but she knew what I could be capable of, and I was just like, well, let me just stay under the bar a little bit so I can fit in with everybody else. And she was like, boy,
Nah,
you know,
that's not you.
and that my dad would do the same exact thing. You know what I'm saying? So he wouldn't stand for
Mm-hmm.
like me just being mediocre. So I was just like, and it wasn't like they're not beat down parents. They're just like, hey, you know you got the gift, go ahead and do it, right? So I was like, all right, cool. But when we come back around to how I think this is a current in my life, I never felt chosen. It felt like you don't think I can do this, and part of my passion was to prove people wrong. But I've evolved out of that. There's a depth to that. But that was a big engine that helped propel me, though. Let's just be honest, it helped propel me in a little way. That was my motivation. Like, you don't think I can do that because of the way I look. You don't think I can do this because of the way I speak. You don't think I can do this because I am a male. All those things, right? But I just went out to prove everybody wrong. And guess what? It did happen over and over. But at a certain time, I had to now. The higher you get with your divinity, the more complex the situations are. And now that's not the complex situation that I am working with now. My complex situation now is like, who do I give my time and attention to? How much do I give my time and attention to when I have all these priorities, when I have the creator first, my wife is second, my kids are next. My purpose and passion is like 6th or 7th on the list. So it's just like navigating that. That's the thing that I want to really be able to master next in my journey as I have.
I love that. And I want to get into this idea of you being an avatar, because you talked about it and you call yourself, right? The avatar of education, right? Avatar of educational advisement. That is the name of your company itself.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about just how you define this idea, because I think it also connects to what you were saying about culture, right?
Yeah.
Of the avatar in education.
Well, I am a big time anime nerd. So for people who know, there's a show called Avatar, The Last Airbender, and there's a character named Aang. He's like a bald headed guy with like an arrow on his forehead. And if you listen to that backstory, I do recommend everybody in the world listen to this story. Go to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a beautiful story. Oh my gosh, anime is one of the best things to connect people. So please do it. So the Avatar's job and mission is to live out his life and help protect the people of the world, and that's what he's supposed to do. However, he has to master 4 different elements, and I just took that idea of mastering these elements in order for the avatar to be his activated in his fullest and most purposeful and most effective into education. In the actual show, there's I hope I get this right. He's an airbender. So he can do magical things with air. He's grew up around airbenders. That's his people. That's where he learned. So that's the thing that comes naturally to him. When I think about Avatar educational advisement, one thing I do is like relationship and building culture. That is the thing that I love to do. I mean, it's like one of those things like you
and you're brilliant at it.
It's just one of the biggest highs that I can get to like bring people together, have them feel empowered, help them feel committed, help people feel seen for their own divinity too. So that was the other thing. Is like me, I might know mine, but like I like to be able to find somebody else. Like, what are you good at? How can we capitalize on that? What's your next dream? What is the thing you're saying to yourself that's like, I can't do that. That's not me. I'm not good enough. And I'm like, I just want to be kind of matter of fact about it. Like, oh yeah, you got that. Let's do it. How can I help you? I just think that that's real, and to really believe that about anybody that you can come into contact with is, and they don't have to, I'm not saying that it has to be like some special person. It's not LeBron James. I'm not talking about LeBron James. I'm talking about people I walk by every day in my community, people in my own house, people on Zoom, people in the chat right now. We should be able to find divinity other people and know there's space for all of us to be great. That's the big thing. But anyway, back to the culture thing. Thank you for that compliment. There's other stuff I had to really work at though, right? Like the other ones are like fire, there's water, and then there's earth, right? So one of the things that I had to like, in order to be the most impactful for my people, my kids, myself, and my own greatness and divinity, I had to learn how to be more operational. I had to make sure that I'm putting things in place, whether it be in my classroom, how I organize things and how I put things into place, and what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, what are the systems and organizational devices we have that we learn and grow together. Those things are really, really important for you to be the most impactful. So I had to really lean into that. Like I told you, my first year, I didn't put up anything on the wall. That's not how it ended out, right? Anchor charts are used, so I know what they do. Like I know when I walk in the room and I'm like, oh, I see this every day. That becomes part of who I am. So I started to be like, wow, what am I going to put up in the wall? It was like all that kind of stuff. And then the other one that I would call earth is like the materials, because you're using the earth. It's like curriculum. Like, how do you use curriculum? How do you understand it in a deep way? And this one's really, really important because all too often we just look at school as like a experience. It should be an experience for the kids. That has to be. But if they're not learning at the level that they're supposed to be learning at, and they're not building those skills and they're building those muscles that they need to do what they need to live out their divinity, then I'm doing them a disservice. So I'm showing love in a different way. I don't love my kids to death. I love them for real. So now it's like, oh, it's just matter of fact that you're in sixth grade that we're going to do sixth and seventh grade level tests. This is my face when I'm saying it. It's matter of fact. It's not, it's like, I don't know if you could do that or not. Okay, we'll find a way. Like, even if you're not where you are now, we'll spend one-on-one time. We'll use scaffolds. We'll bring other people. We're going to figure this out. And that's the beauty of it, right? So I think that's another one. And then the last one is facilitative. And that's like, how do you get people to move with you, whether it be your students, whether it be if you're the principal, how you move your staff, your community as a community activist, being the dad at this house. How do I get people behind me to do the stuff that you say we're going to do? I just look at all of these things as things you can master. So I feel like I've had to lean into those other things really well. And if you follow the story, Aang has to find other people that are masters of these things already. And he studies underneath them while he's still living out his greatness. And I just think that sounds awesome. Cool. Like, I can be great. You can be great. And I can learn from you. And one day I'm going to just activate all this together. And I'm going to be the most impactful I can and leave legacies beyond what we have here now. So, yeah, I get excited about that stuff and thinking about it. And I think about being activated. And when I'm activated, I'm at my best moment. So, and then there's other times I'm like, dang, I really need to work in that facilitative area right now because, I'm not tapping into the people, or I'm not listening to them, or I'm trying to do it my way. I've had to do a lot of iterations of things. And I think that that's just part of the beauty of it. It's like, it shouldn't be a science. It should be an art. So.
Gosh, that's so true. And I love it. I mean, and when you're activated, it's clear that other people get that activation, and it's infectious in a positive way, right? Like, and Kennedy says, I think it's hard to please everybody, but as long as you're able to reach one or others with education and they use it and elevate it, you've done your purpose in a positive way. So absolutely true. And Jason you're leaving that legacy for sure. Yeah.
I just want to say something to Kennedy, and you're right. And the thing is, I do want to make sure that people understand, though, not everybody's gonna like you when you're living out your purpose. Hold on a second. Not everybody's gonna like you, and there's gonna be some people who are gonna give you pushback, and they're gonna be fighting against themselves too. Like, they're not gonna really believe the stuff that you're saying, and this goes to students, teachers, community members. And I think that we still can be super impactful to many, but we also have to be mindful that they are not gonna like us, and we have to be courageous and brave enough to know that we're not people pleasers. We're looking past that to purpose. And the way you do it, though, it's important. That's why I take time before I have a crucial conversation or a courageous conversation or I have black coffee conversation. I take time to be like, okay, what am I really trying to get out of this? And what do I want for us, right? And so I'm very purposeful and intentional about that stuff, because I know that not everybody's going to feel the same way I am. I do my best, but also some people are not going to be receptive to it, and that's okay. Sometimes they come around later, and that's okay. So I'm just going to do the best I can.
But that's important, and I think a lot of what you're saying connects back to that, because this idea of oftentimes people's discomfort comes from not knowing and wanting to even push through the discomfort of getting to your greatness, and so that push and care that we give to students is the same push and care we have to give to our adults too, right? It's the same thing, because it is getting through and seeing my greatness. One of the things, though, that I love it, at Peace O'Kara Hoggins, our brother from Unbounded. What's up? This conversation is simply dope. I appreciate you tuning in and being with us. And yes, because Jason is dope. And so... But you know what I think is really cool, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this or if you think about it this way, but it's like you have this curiosity about discomfort instead of a fear of it, almost. Like every moment, everything you've shared, whether it was as a child, as, a young adult, or as an adult now in your careers, right? Like, and all the things that you do with that, there's a problem. Now I'm curious about, how do I solve this problem? here's how I reach out to, and you have these key things, right? You talked about community, you talked about relationships and culture, and then connecting out back to, so what's that piece that I'm missing? And that's amazing. That's, I think, so important in any field. So I know that we don't always have educators here watching, and I love that there's like this overlap though of people that aren't educators, but you have kids in school, or you know other people, or you're in a business and you have a culture you're creating, right? This is all overlapping ideas that connect to so many different pieces of life. And again, like when I think of this show, I think of what are the tools that people need to walk away with, and that approach that you have, right, is your tool.
I really appreciate you saying those things, because it feels like sometimes my inclination before was to run, or to get away from discomfort at all. But then I found that power actually goes to confronting things early on and do it in a way that's super intentional, loving, and caring. And I also look at like the other opposite of things, like when I do something wrong, I have to like one of the deaths, and I want to say it out loud to the world, is like one of the deaths I had to incur is like my pride and ego had to die in order for me to be able to help other people. Because if my pride and ego were first, then no matter what I was doing, then that always superseded everything else. And I think that was a big shift, because even the way I was raised is like you kind of do as you're told, make sure you follow ideas, make sure you're compliant, have a respect and those different things. But I've learned now that my pride and ego standing in the way of a lot of different relationships that I had. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh, I could have done better in those relationships. I could have been more impactful if I would have been more vulnerable, if I would have told the truth, if I would have been listened and got curious first instead of just going on my own understanding. All these different things are like deaths that like now I'm reincarnated into these different things, and now I'm like practicing them more. And what better way to practice is with the people who are closest to you, right? Like I'm not waiting for some moment to do these things. Like I got my wife right here. Let me be more curious when we have a disagreement. My kids, let me be more curious when we have a disagreement. I can ask my kid a question like, so when this happened, was this your intention? Did I do something to hurt your feelings? I'm sorry about that. The more I practice here, the ready I was ready for my kids at school, and they were I love my kids. So it's like my kids I love all my kids, and I'm talking about my school students. They are always so receptive to everything that you get to like just practice and play being vulnerable with them. And like, what, I was wrong when I said this to you, I was wrong. I'm sorry about that. There's more power in that than there was in a lot of preaching I was doing at a community circle or whatever I was doing. There's more power in me saying I'm sorry. There's more power in saying I was wrong. Let me apologize to you, teacher.
And being fallible and vulnerable. Like, I know you said it, the vulnerability. Vulnerability is such a huge, huge, huge thing in life. And I really appreciate how you talked about that death of ego. And pride, right? And I have to say, and I don't know for you, I mean, you might be more skilled at this than me, but I feel like it's something that it keeps coming, because the thing is, what you don't realize is that your ego actually is your defense mechanism to protect yourself from hurt, from harm, right? So now my ego goes up, and what it is it seems like that's, this is me protecting myself, but in fact, actually, you're just blocking out the things that could be helping you, right? And that's so important in anything. But you mentioned, because I think it's really important to elevate this, and we didn't talk about it a lot. You said you're a father, but you haven't told everybody how many kids you had yet.
I haven't.
So break it down. You're a father to 8 children.
Yes, I am.
Age from 20 to little ones. So how old are your children?
Yes.
And let's talk about this a little bit, because there's a lot of curiosity in this, right?
Okay, I'm sure there is. Okay, you're right. I did not. I just kind of skipped over that a little bit. Okay, here we go.
I mean, you said you're a dad, and you are, but yeah, no.
It's true, and it's one of my big. I mean, I love being a dad so much. But it's like my dad had 9 kids, and I just love everything about being part of a big family. It's a party. Me and my siblings are so close. We just love each other in a deep way, and it's just like this is one of the best communities I've ever been part of, and the extended part is just amazing too. My uncles and aunts. He had a lot of brothers and sisters too, or he had a lot of brothers, one sister, and my mom also had like a lot of brothers and sisters. So I'm always part of like some crazy big party, right? I didn't know it was gonna be me though. I didn't. I'm gonna be honest with you. I thought I would be like, just have some kids or whatever. But I have 8 kids. My first son, my firstborn, he has his own company called Simply Dope. His name is
I
Keenan.
love it.
He lives in Nebraska. He is an amazing artist and talented entrepreneur. I have a daughter who is amazing at everything. She's 26 and she lives in Omaha as well, and she's a nurse. And she's soon to get married, so I'm really excited about that. Her life mate, Scotty, who is also a great guy. And then so my oldest at this home. So let me set it up for you. We live in the South Bronx. My wife and I. By the way, I'm going to go backwards a little bit. My wife. I only moved to New York because I chased this girl who I met in Nebraska when I was 18, and I came back. I heard that she was single from her brothers, who I also am very, very close to, and I literally pretty much just moved within 2 months to Nebraska just to get my girl, and I got her. So. That's a beautiful story. I'll tell that one
That's a
other
great
time.
story.
Her dad was also an engineer on the railroad. I didn't know her because her dad and mom separated, and she moved to Omaha. I lived in North Platte. I knew her brothers before I even knew her. Like, they're ball players with me. I didn't even know she existed. They didn't tell me. But when I met her one day, it was amazing, and she's been my life partner, my soulmate forever, even back then. So I'm just really blessed, and I'm glad I made the choice to come to New York, and now. I get to be New York. I get to do what I want. That's cool. I like it. So anyway, we have 6 kids at our home. Cadence is 16. Then Creighton is 13. Maxwell is 11. Lincoln, they're all like Nebraska names if you haven't picked up on it.
Yeah.
Like Maxwell's a town in Nebraska. Lincoln's a town in Nebraska. Creighton is a university. Then we have after Lincoln, we had the blessing of having monodi twins that are 5-year-olds, almost 5.5 if you ask them. That's Cornelia and Patty, and that's our unschooling homeschool family. So also, I'm a CEO of a homeschool or unschool here in our little brownstone in the South Bronx. Most dysfunctional CEO in that area, but hey, I'm trying my
That
best.
might be the most challenging level of responsibility right there, right? I
Yeah.
love that, and blessings upon blessings. That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing, and a great story between you and your wife, because it sounds like fated thing, and to have a partner who's ready to have that many kids with you is I mean, right? Let's jump on board. We're having the kids, right? I see the chat is blowing up. I knew it would, right? Because how many people do you meet who's got 8 kids regularly, right? My dad got 30 plus kids certified. He's my hero. Oh, I love that. Thanks,
Kennedy. I'm not competing with that man though. I don't.
Yeah,
I wasn't competing in the first place. I don't know how this happened. I needed to get cable. Is what I should.
Well, and then you mentioned your older 2 live in Nebraska, so you have 2. Like, how did that transpire? Is it like that's an interesting decision, because were they were in originally New York with you?
No, they weren't. So they're from other relationships in Nebraska.
Oh,
When
okay,
I moved.
okay.
Yeah. So
Nice.
there's definitely decisions that were made to be to live and be liberated. At the same time, some of these decisions are still things that my oldest 2 we talk about all the time. So we have an open relationship to talk about, like, what is the pain and power that you have to go through with your dad that I have to rectify because of the things I've done to you. And those are real conversations. So yeah, and I appreciate them for loving me and like accepting me, and also being courageous enough to like, hey, that's really messed up when you did this or whatever. And I have to be like, how do I make it right? So that restorative approach has to be there, but they're beautiful and blessed as well. And I gave them, to God, and like, hey, but I also want to be part of their life for the rest of their life too. So everybody, we have a meeting right after this, like a family meeting right after this. So I'm looking forward to it.
I love that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so, I mean, all of this comes together. You have a beautiful life. You're doing all these amazing things. And I just want to know, like, as you think about your journey and all of these different, life decisions that you've made, what might be something that you had to forgive yourself for as you just experience and learn things about life and about yourself?
I would say, I mean, there's many things actually, because like I said, I am not the way I'm speaking right now. It may even feel like I'm the protagonist in all stories or whatever of everybody impacted, but that's not true, right? I'm like a supporting cast. Sometimes I'm an antagonist. I just have to. The thing that I think about the most is like I'm gonna make mistakes, and I'm always gonna live into my purpose and passion. But I know I'm gonna make mistakes, but just really leaning forward just as much to make things right, and just to make sure that like I'm always living with intentionality, and like if um, when I make a mistake, who am I as I'm making these mistakes, as something is dying. What's the rebirth from it, right? What's the rebirth from it? So if my pride and ego is going to die, then what is going to take its place? And I just always want to just get better and like lean into people and just know that I have the best intentions for all the people I encounter. But always that doesn't always mean it's going to translate into great relationships and those things. So I've had to forgive myself from not being there for everybody, but also making mistakes that like threaten our relationships with the people I really care about and I love. So if I have a chance to restore it, I will. But at the same time, I'm always going to have goodwill towards everybody I've encountered, especially all my students, especially all, those are my babies. Like the people that know me here, everybody has my number because that was part of my leadership. It's like, oh, all the facilitators got my number too. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I'm going to give my personal number. I'm going to text you when I'm thinking about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And like, I still have all these great relationships. And at the same time, I know that there's some people that I may have, they had some pain because of how I conducted myself. And those things are like, I just wish them the best. And also if there's anything I can do.
It's an honest thing. I appreciate that, right? This idea of knowing that you could be the protagonist or the antagonist in your life, and owning it. I think that's the big thing, right? The key is the ownership of your humanity in all the layers of what that is, the good and the challenging, and the things that you're still working through, and the things that you couldn't work through, but you're trying to rectify, right? Like there's so much there. And you share such amazing things. If you haven't done it yet, please go follow Jason. Go follow him. Follow him on Instagram. Follow him on TikTok. Follow me too on Brown Girl Interrupting. If you haven't done that yet, please make sure you do that. Click the bell and subscribe to this channel. And make sure that you click the bell for all the notifications of when we go live for interviews. Jason, you have your business that you're working on, and you have this book coming up. Are there any other big projects you have that you want to share with us that are coming up?
Unbound Ed, we are going into 2025. We're going to have a lot more engagements, and we are going to I hope if you're in education or even not in education, an educator, let them know that Unbound Ed exists. We're trying to turn the world purple. We are really here to help change the outcomes for all students so they can be successful in this world. And my facilitators are the best by far in the nation, the best educators I know, and I'm still learning from them, and I still am so blessed to be around them. That's one of the biggest projects. I will say that I am going to continue my educational avatar advisement. I'm doing a lot of leadership coaching, which I love to do, and I tailor it to whoever the leader actually is. Like if you like to work out and talk, we're going to work out and talk. If you want to, I do it. I just like, look, let's lean into stuff we like and stuff. If you're ready to do this, let's do it. And then I do definitely I always am looking for ways and opportunities to help people and communities, like help make the experience for kids in school to be challenging, but also be so rewarding and loving and caring. If you even have a 1 or 2 years of that in your educational career, it can change the outcome for many students. I live in the South Bronx. I'm doing a lot of coaching with people right now. I'm making the culture at those places really great for my students to walk right by my house. And I've been so blessed to have the opportunity to do it. And then my books and then podcasts, all that stuff is coming up in 2025.
Podcast. Tell me about this podcast.
Well, there's all kinds. So there's.
Okay, well, and Kennessy's already asking, do you have a YouTube channel? Maybe it sounds like you're going to have one too.
Okay. So all these things.
I know a producer.
I see that. But check this out. So Kennessy, you're right. Like, and you're right too, Marty. Like, part of this journey was like all of this was supposed to be in line already, but it was like part of this this dysmorphia and like a thing I was already fighting, right? That's the pain. I was like, man, there's a dysmorphia. I'm not sure. I got to jump back in there. I went through a tough situation. Is that still who I am? And true enough, opportunity gave me opportunity gave me a chance to live in my divinity. And this is the stuff I'm passionate about, and I can help others while I hope also help myself and leave a legacy. So you will see a YouTube channel, you will see a podcast, and they're all different stuff because I like a lot of stuff, right? So I'm talking about. I'm in the South Bronx. I'm a community activist, so you're going to see some things that we talk about with community activism. I got this guy that I played basketball with. He wants to do a podcast about like he's a white man and I'm a black man, and we want to talk about, and we both grew up in Nebraska, and like how things are playing themselves out in the world today. So that's going to be really interesting for us to talk about, and the stuff that we send to each other. Our chat is ridiculous and sometimes inappropriate, but whatever. That's just how it's going to be. And then the other thing that's coming out is just like this idea of being an avatar, and how teachers can take a manual and a resource and just be like, hey, how do I start somewhere with mastering some of these things? And hopefully that just gives them a little bit to get going, and then they can continue building on it, because you can't do it all at once. It has to be a journey, and that's the best part. It's a journey. So it's like, how do you start? What do you do next? How do you cultivate that journey? That's going to be sick.
I love that. And I will say from experience, y'all want Jason on this journey with you. You want him on this journey with you for certain. And I love it. I am here for the podcast. I love that. Yeah, you do have so many different dynamic ways of approaching those things. I did see our chat blowing up, so I want to make sure we honor it. We got a lot of people all ready to like hang on those every words, right? Do the YouTube channel. So Living Ishe Live says, great show tonight. Thank you. And welcome to our Ranters Union fam. And Kennedy says, Jason, you got to have self-preservation, and you can teach as you learn. I do it daily. Thanks so much, Kennedy. And I want to say, you mentioned this, and yes, a great show. It was a great conversation. You mentioned this, this idea that you've had this running thing where you felt like you saw yourself more than others saw you, right? You weren't chosen. Like you knew, but you weren't chosen. And so many of us come to that. But what I love, and I hope you walk away with, and I hope that the audience walks away with, is that you choose yourself. You keep choosing yourself, and what you're doing is you're helping others to keep choosing themselves. And I'm going to say, we started off talking about 5 years ago, but 5 years ago, I was in a place where Unbound Ed was like this, like I was struggling in so many things. I had only recently been divorced and, was starting over again, did not know where my path was. And that conversation, we sat and talked for hours that night. And it changed the way I was starting to see myself. You like planted this seed of divinity, and I didn't even realize it, right? And here we are 5 years later on my show.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that is a beautiful way that I think your power, it's almost as though that struggle of not being chosen has propelled you into who you've chosen to be, right? And who you are for so many other people. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. I'm going to keep going. Please follow me. Please follow Marya.
Yes, go follow.
Interrupting though. This is amazing. I feel like, feel nice and warm.
I love it. I mean, I'm so grateful for you. And this was amazing. Please go follow Jason. Make sure we're going to see so much more coming from him. And follow me. I'm Brown Girl Interrupting. This is Pain to Power. And our goal is always to give you the tools to heal yourself. And so as we close out, that's exactly it, right? Like choose yourself, find your people, draw on those tools, because pain is inevitable. Struggles are inevitable. Challenge is inevitable. But what do you have inside you? Who are you prepared to be so that you can get through it is the key. And who do you need on your side to get there, right? Go find your community. You need Jason? Go find Jason. You need me. Read my writing. Watch my show. There are tons of guests that are going to give you those tools and give you those pieces. And join me every Sunday at 8 o'clock on YouTube, on my channel, Brown Girl Interrupted, on the Ranters Union, and on the iRant Network as well on YouTube and Facebook. And come join the conversation for Pain to Power with new guests. It is so wonderful. Thank you for being here. Please make sure that if you are watching us as a rebroadcast, you leave a comment in the YouTube chat so that we can connect and have an amazing evening. Thank you again, Jason. This has been so worth the wait.
Thank you.
Worth the wait. You know, I harassed you. I mean, like this guy knows I harass him every couple of months. I'm like, you ready? You ready?
Yes, it's true. It's true. And you're not lying, but this was the time. If you want to have me anytime, I'm here for you and your people. They feel like my people now too. I love it. It's great.
I love it. They are your people. And thank you so much to my iRant family for always showing up. We appreciate it. I am so grateful for it. And I did start talking about how I took a break to recalibrate and get myself together. And part of that was my appreciation and gratitude of how much support I always have from people far and near, all backing me up on this journey of turning our struggles, all of us, into our strengths. Peace, love, and light. My world has slowly crumbled around me countless times, and every time I rebuild with the pieces I've been given to birth something so transformational and beautiful that no one else knew might exist before it was shown to them. These moments tend to coincide within my romantic path. The universe has been telling me to focus on the revolution and not romance. It has over time given me the tools, resilience, and light to turn my pain into power. And only now do I see that the key to this always resided in the love and knowing I had in myself, not from the external sources of family or men. The message I have been avoiding might be that my time in this world I had existed in was not to receive love, but to put it out there for others to see, feel, and heal through. Revolution before romance moves pain into power.